Today, we're going to talk about a bizarre trial in a town called Salem. Wait, what? You said you've heard this one before? Oh no, I'm not talking about the Salem witch trials that occurred in the 17th century in Salem, Mass. That's been done so many times. Instead, we're going to Salem, New Jersey, so we can talk about the Salem Tomato Trials of 1820. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. You got your boy Smash here. This is my 5th video in a series entitled History's Strangest Events. This is where we're going to look at some of the weirdest, strangest, and most bizarre events in human history. From mass hysteria to cataclysmic natural phenomena, we want to take you on a trip through some of our forgotten past. So if you like what you see, don't forget to follow and smash that like button, and of course hit the little bell icon so you know when my next video drops. Question: what's the most consumed fruit in the world? In case you're stuck, here's a few hints. First, even though it's a fruit, a lot of people think it's a vegetable. Need another hint? Well, besides potatoes, they're the most commonly consumed fruit or vegetable in America. Okay, one more hint. Its most common uses are in ketchup and pizza sauce. So by now, you probably guessed I'm talking about the fruit the French called pomme d'amour, or the love apple. Yep, the tomato. Tomatoes belong to the group Solanum, which derived from the single species Solanum lycopersicum, which includes plants such as peppers, potatoes, eggplant, and even tobacco. In fact, they're all part of the nightshade family. And as for tomatoes, while they're mostly red and round, sometimes even green, they can also come in many different colors and awkward shapes. But they've changed a lot since they first burst onto the scene so long ago. So does anyone want to guess where the tomato originated? Italy? Good guess, but wrong. It's nowhere in Europe. Nope, not the US either. You have to go much further south, all the way to Peru. Peru is where tomatoes were first domesticated some 7,000 years ago. But they look nothing like the tomatoes we recognize today. Back then they were the size of blueberries. In South America, tomatoes were cultivated to be roughly the size of grapes. In this form, they were spread throughout the western part of the continent and into Mesoamerica. This was mainly due to pollination by birds, allowing the tomato to grow in different regions and climates. Eventually they even ended up in Europe. Wait, how did they end up in Europe? Let me guess, a bunch of European settlers came over to an already inhabited land, stole all their crops, and took all the credit for it. Typical European settlers.
Focus.
Seriously? So, European settlers, specifically the Spanish conquistadors, brought the tomato plant back to Europe with them in the 16th century, where it was genetically modified to become the tomato we all recognize and love today. And boy do we love tomatoes. From sauces and soups, to salads and condiments, the tomato, in one form or another, has made its way into every one of our kitchens and pantries all over the world. As I mentioned, it's the most consumed fruit in the world. But this wasn't always the case. For many centuries, up to colonial American times, most people believed the tomato to be poisonous. This was mainly due to the vibrant red color of the tomato, which in nature usually signifies danger or poison. American colonists grew tomatoes, but for decoration rather than food. Nobody would think of eating a tomato, as the common belief was that it would turn your blood into acid. And besides the color red, certain religious groups in Europe believed the tomato to have aphrodisiac qualities and labeled it as a sinful fruit. That's why the French call it the love apple. But as years passed, the sinful fruit became synonymous with poison, leading people to believe that they were dangerous. Now today, we know that this is all nonsense. The worst thing a tomato might do to you is give you a really bad case of heartburn. And even back then, in other parts of the world, people were consuming tomatoes, but not really here in the States. A lot of this fear of tomatoes can be traced to research in the 1500s by a barber/surgeon named John Gerard. Wait, a barber/surgeon? They just let anyone perform medical procedures back in the day, huh?
Nope, you're good.
Okay. So, barber/surgeon John Gerard, one of the first modern cultivators of the tomato, said they contain low levels of a toxin called tomatine, which would kill you if ingested. It was his research that partly led to the tomatoes being shunned for 3 centuries. I mean, I can't believe an esteemed barber surgeon would get something like this so wrong. And while they do contain the toxin, there isn't nearly enough to kill you. I mean, there's even cyanide in apples and arsenic in rice, which, like tomatine, is perfectly safe in small quantities. As the saying goes, everything is poison in a large enough dose. Which brings us back to Salem, New Jersey in 1820. At this time, tomatoes were still thought to be poisonous and were merely used as ornamental fruit. That was until one man, Colonel Robert Gibbons Johnson, decided to put that long-held belief to the test. Colonel Johnson said he believed that tomatoes were not poisonous. He even claimed to have eaten them regularly for some period of time. This led the town people in Salem to believe that the tomatoes had caused the colonel to go mad, creating even more irrational fear. To try to make the tomatoes seem more appealing, Johnson even tried to hold contests to see who could grow the biggest tomato. When nobody bit, pardon the pun, Colonel Johnson had finally had enough. On September 25, 1820, Johnson took a barrel of tomatoes outside the Salem courthouse to allow them to stand trial. To the shock of the crowd that had gathered, the colonel bit into one of the tomatoes. And they were even more bewildered when, instead of collapsing and dying an agonizing death, he took another bite, and another. As more people gathered, hoping to see a tragedy, Colonel Robert Gibbons Johnson ate tomato after tomato. After seeing the colonel eat all those tomatoes with no ill effects, the trial was officially dismissed, and the tomato was exonerated of all crimes. Shortly after, many of the folks in the town of Salem would enjoy a tomato for the first time themselves, though there were certainly some holdouts. But imagine if this one man, Colonel Robert Gibbons Johnson, didn't have the courage to laugh in the face of modern convention. What would the world be like today? Well, probably not much different. As I already mentioned, in other parts of the world, they already were well aware that tomatoes were safe and delicious. Eventually, word would have reached America. But would it be the #1 consumed fruit in the world today if it weren't for the way we mass-produce them here in the States? It's tough to say, and while I'm not a huge fan of ketchup, I don't know what I'd do without my Pastine San Marzano to make a gravy on Sunday. And speaking of food, let me know your favorite tomato dish down in the comments, and tell me what you think about the Salem Tomato Trial. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope y'all enjoyed. Don't forget to follow and smash that like button, and make sure you hit that bell icon so you'll be ready for my next video. And if you don't want to wait another week for my next video, you can see more of me by following on TikTok and Twitch at SmashAdams28. And come back next week when we talk about a strange natural phenomenon that may lead us to look at how to protect ourselves in the future. Until then, get smashed, everyone.